Fela Kuti was born in Abeokuta, Nigeria, in 1938, into a family where education, activism, and public life were central. His father was a Protestant minister and school principal. His mother, Funmilayo Ransom Kuti, was a prominent anti-colonial activist and one of the most influential women in Nigeria's political history. The environment that shaped him was not defined solely by music. It was defined by argument, civic engagement, and resistance to authority. In 1959, Fela traveled to London. The original intention was to study medicine, but the path changed. He enrolled at Trinity College of Music and trained in classical composition and performance. While living in London, he was exposed to jazz, highlife, and emerging forms of Black American music. He formed his first band, Kula Lobitos, blending West African rhythms with jazz structures. The foundation of his musical language began there. Disciplined training combined with experimentation. When Fela returned to Nigeria in the 1960s, the country itself was undergoing profound transformation. Independence from Britain had arrived in 1960, followed by political instability, military coups, and widening tensions between civilian leadership and armed rule. Within this climate, Fela continued developing his sound. Highlife remained the dominant popular genre, but he pushed towards something heavier, more rhythmically layered, and structurally unconventional. A pivotal shift occurred after his 1969 trip to the United States, particularly his stay in Los Angeles. During this period, he encountered members of the Black Power movement and met Sandra Isidore, who introduced him to political literature and revolutionary thought. He studied the writings of Malcolm X and absorbed the rhetoric of Black liberation and anti-imperial critique. The impact was immediate and enduring. His music moved away from themes of romance and social leisure, turning instead toward systemic injustice, state violence, corruption, and colonial legacy. Out of this transformation emerged Afrobeat. The genre fused Yoruba rhythms, highlife, jazz improvisation, and American funk into extended compositions built on hypnotic grooves. Afrobeat tracks often stretched beyond 10 or 20 minutes. The structure allowed space for instrumental dialogue, call and response vocals, and political commentary delivered with repetition and insistence. The rhythm section became central, particularly through the drumming of Tony Allen, whose polyrhythmic style defined the propulsion and elasticity of the music. Allen later described Afrobeat as a collaborative invention rather than a singular creation. Afrobeat was not designed as passive entertainment. It functioned as a vehicle for critique. Fela's lyrics addressed police brutality, economic exploitation, military repression, and the contradictions of post-colonial governance. His performances blurred boundaries between concert, political rally, and theatrical ritual. The Shrine, his Lagos nightclub, became both a musical venue and a site of ideological expression. Near the Shrine, Fela established the Kalakuta Republic, a communal compound housing family members, musicians, dancers, and associates. He declared it independent from the Nigerian state. Kalakuta operated as a residence, recording space, creative hub, and symbolic rejection of official authority. It also became a target. By the mid-1970s, tensions between Fela and Nigeria's military government intensified. His recordings, particularly Zombie, directly mocked soldiers as instruments of blind obedience. The response from the state was severe. On February 18, 1977, approximately 1,000 soldiers stormed the Kalakuta compound. Buildings were destroyed, property was burned, Fela was beaten. During the assault, his mother, Funmilayo Ransom Kuti, was thrown from a window. She later died from her injuries in 1978. The attack marked a turning point, but did not silence him. Fela responded with music and public protest. He delivered his mother's coffin to Dodon Barracks, the military headquarters, transforming private grief into political accusation. Songs such as "Coffin for Head of State" documented the violence and extended his confrontation with the regime. Around this same period, Fela made one of the most controversial decisions of his life. In February 1978, he married 27 women, many of whom were dancers and singers associated with his band and the Kalakuta community. The ceremony, conducted according to traditional Yoruba customs, drew international attention and domestic criticism. Fela framed the marriages as both a rejection of colonial moral frameworks and an effort to legitimize women who were facing harassment and stigmatization. Reactions varied widely. Supporters viewed the act as cultural assertion. Critics described it as excess, spectacle, or imbalance of power. The women themselves, often referred to collectively as the queens, played integral roles in performance, choreography, and the visual identity of Afrobeat. Fela's engagement with politics extended beyond lyrics. In 1979, he formed the Movement of the People, a political party through which he attempted to run for the Nigerian presidency. His candidacy was blocked. Subsequent years brought repeated arrests, trials, and periods of imprisonment. Charges ranged from alleged currency violations to accusations widely regarded by observers as politically motivated. Fela's relationship with authority remained adversarial and cyclical. Accusation, detention, release, and renewed criticism. Throughout the 1980s and 1990s, Afrobeat's global influence expanded. International tours introduced wider audiences to the scale and intensity of Fela's live performances. Musicians across genres cited his work as a reference point for rhythm, groove architecture, and political messaging. His compositions challenged Western conventions of song length and structure. His band functioned as a disciplined, tightly arranged ensemble capable of sustaining complex rhythmic interplay over long durations. At home, his public image remained polarizing. He was regarded simultaneously as a cultural hero, political dissident, provocateur, and controversial figure whose lifestyle defied social norms. His open advocacy of marijuana use, critique of religious institutions, and rejection of conservative expectations reinforced both admiration and opposition. Fela Anikulapo Kuti died in Lagos on August 2, 1997, at the age of 58. Reports linked his death to complications associated with AIDS. His passing triggered one of the largest public funerals in Nigerian history. Estimates suggested that more than 1 million people participated in the processional ceremonies. The scale reflected the breadth of his impact across music, politics, and cultural identity. After his death, his legacy continued through multiple channels. The shrine was rebuilt as the New Africa Shrine, serving as a performance venue and memorial space. The Kalakuta Museum preserved elements of his residence and archive. His sons, Femi Kuti and Seun Kuti, carried forward the Afrobeat tradition, adapting it for new audiences while retaining its core rhythmic and political DNA. Annual festivals such as Felabration institutionalized his memory within Nigeria's cultural calendar. Afrobeat itself survived the man who defined it. The genre informed subsequent movements in African popular music, even as newer styles, including Afrobeats, diverged in structure and tone. Producers, jazz musicians, hip-hop artists, and electronic composers continued sampling, referencing, and reinterpreting Fela's catalog. His recordings remained active components of political discourse, academic study, and global music history. Fela's life resists simplification. He challenged military governments, yet sought political office. He denounced systems of domination while constructing a highly centralized creative world around his persona. He advocated liberation, cultural pride, and African autonomy while living in ways that generated persistent debate about authority, gender, and responsibility. His contradictions were visible, documented, and inseparable from his public identity. What remains undisputed is the durability of the work. The grooves he built did not fade with changing regimes or shifting generations. The rhythmic architecture, the horn arrangements, the extended instrumental conversations, and the directness of his political language continue to circulate. Decades after his death, Afrobeat is still performed, studied, and reimagined. Fela Kuti did not operate quietly within his era. He forced confrontation between art and power, between culture and state, between performance and politics. His career unfolded at the intersection of music, ideology, and spectacle. His legacy endures not as a settled verdict, but as an ongoing argument carried by sound.